Hi everyone, welcome to day 79. Let's get started. Can you guys hear me? I just want to read this little it's a very short excerpt. It's regarding suicide, and I would just like to give a little warning before. What I'm about to talk about is going to involve topics of self-harm. Yeah. It says, like many who have manic depressive illness, I have also known suicide in a more private, awful way, and I trace the loss of a fundamental innocence to the day that I first considered suicide as the only solution possible to an unendurable level of mental pain. Until that time, I had taken for granted and loved more than I knew a temperamental lightness of mood and a fabulous expectation of life. I knew death only in the most abstract of senses. I never imagined it would be something to arrange or seek. Isn't that haunting? I think that is just haunting. Because sometimes, shoot, I don't know if you guys can hear me. Okay, sometimes I think of when you're just in a bad, like, when you're in a bad mood, it could be you're just not in a good mood. You had a terrible day, or you've been just having this really awful week. You can't get your energy up by doing activities that usually enlighten your mood. It could be physical activities like swimming, hiking, biking, etc. Or it could be cooking, for example, or playing chess. I guess reading, maybe playing video games. You try to find multiple different sources to get your some sort of relief, happiness back, but it's all just covered with this dread, this blanket of dread, and you can't really see what the hell is under there, like why it's not coming out. I think once one reveals, that such a blanket could exist and it can literally just hide all your happiness altogether. I think that's one of the scariest realizations one can have regarding life. All of a sudden, the room that you are in, the very air that you're breathing, the very concept of time. I talked about this in the last video about how this concept of time, this 1 second, minute, hour, etc., that we're just trapped in here, quote unquote trapped. And I can't fathom the amount of pain, the amount of mental pain that is just unbearable for people. I can't imagine that they only see suicide as the only way out. That is just, it's haunting. I don't want to imagine myself being in that situation. But I've read there was something that I read recently. It was about if you're happy, do you see the world perception matters, right? As in I wonder who sees the world in a more clear way, like in a more direct way. Person who is sad or person who is happy, person who is depressed, or person who is euphoric. They're just super optimistic about everything. Everything's just gonna, it's a beautiful day. Sunshine is shining for me. I have a great day ahead of me, etc. I wonder who sees the world as it is, and it's we don't think about a lot of negative things in our lives. If you really think about it, there are a lot of, excuse my profanity, profanity coming in 3, 2, 1. Okay, there's a lot of fucked up shit in this world. So much unfairness, greediness, just ugly shades of human nature, and it really, this may sound very this is what I think about, um the more you the more you're exposed. Let's say you love eating, right? um to that person who loves eating, to you who loves eating, there's probably, if you have the money and the time, to constantly travel all over the world to try new food, new types. It's literally, it's a utopia. You can try every food, every market, and you will not be able to visit every store. um Most likely you will die first. So it's very euphoric, but you know will that person be happy all throughout the journey? That's what I'm that's one of the it's so my the premise that I'm trying to get to is whether or not this person, well, if this person is fed constant knowledge, constant, source of happiness or bliss. um Human body is all about homeostasis, right? There needs to be a balance. You can't be too happy. You need some sort of negativity in your life to get that happiness in check. um because I So what I'm trying to say is, do you think more happiness actually causes you to crash harder? It's like you're drinking more alcohol, or you're having more coffee. You're gonna crash later, but it's gonna be much more severe if you're on 8 cups of coffee versus 1 cup of coffee. I think it's the same with knowledge. Um, I've read accounts, and this is not saying that this is all of it, but it was just an interesting find. I heard that the more you know, the more depressed you get, because you're just like, God, this is an awful world, and what awful things the people in the past do, like people in the past have done, that are just egregious. Of course, there's positive things, but when you focus on the negatives, and it's what's interesting is, actually, I think it's because, never mind. This is that didn't make sense. But yeah, I think sometimes ignorance is bliss. But learning is an interesting experience, though. Like what I'm doing with this, with these books. says, ready? Encompassed with 1,000 dangers, weary, faint, trembling with 1,000 terrors, I, dot, 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 in a fleshy tomb am buried above ground. William Cowper. That's just scary, man. That is just scary. I in a fleshy tomb am buried above ground. Shoot. Okay, this thing was off. Have you guys ever seen the movie Smile by any chance? Um I Smile 2 is playing right now. I haven't seen it, but I watched Smile 1 and it was a great experience. And this reading this just kind of made me think of Smile. So let me read the quote first, and then I'll explain in the best way I can. We will never know who or why or how the first to kill himself did or herself. We will never know that either. But it is very likely that one suicide occurred and others were cognizant of it. The act was repeated in part because the reasons and means would remain integral to the psychological and physical environment, and in part because animals and humans learn to a considerable extent through imitation. Suicide dangerously has a contagious aspect. It has as well for the vulnerable an indisputable appeal as a solution of last resort. Now, Smile is spoiler alert, excuse me. Smile is so it revolves around this demon that that is able to latch into someone after. So it involves two people. It involves the original, the original and the host. The host commits suicide. The host commits suicide while the original is in the room staring at the host. The host essentially traumatizes the original viewer, the original being person, and in traumatizing them with the sight of seeing someone else commit suicide, the Smile being, is able to then latch on to the original being, and I shouldn't say original. I should just say new host. Yeah, that was a poor phrase, a poor label. So the Smile entity latches on to its new host. Now, if you think about the act of suicide, and it says that it's because how did we evolve to have that, right? Like, how do we evolve to have that sense of suicide? And it's very it's it's absolutely frightening to realize that everyone, like we all human beings, are able to be brought up to the point of suicide. Seriously, no one is invulnerable. Like no one is in like seriously, anyone can be brought into a point of suicide. Like how did that happen? Is what I'm trying to say. Like how did that assimilation of, is it an assimilation? No, dissipation is probably the right word. How did that dissipation of harming oneself to the point where they don't exist anymore, like doing such, it's like, because I say this because the people that have they must have had families, or they must have had people that knew them, or they must have had witnesses, unrelated, completely random witnesses that saw them kill themselves. I guess, yeah. I mean, does that make sense? Maybe like that sight of seeing this person commit suicide, maybe unconsciously caused something to happen inside their brains, like a reaction, unknown reaction. like like the way that our body grows. You know, like no one knows when the hell, like no one knows how much they're gonna grow, or no one actually physically is able to control how much they want to grow, right? Like I can't say, ah, I want to grow like 5 inches. Hey feet, grow 5 inches. Like I don't have control of that over that. You know, like during puberty, you can't do that. Like it happens unconsciously. It's an interesting and a very frightening thing to think about. Recorded. Observations about suicidal are of necessity for more reason. drop my Kindle, excuse me. Anyways, that concludes day 79. I'll see you guys on day 80.